Welcome back. Let's take you back to KZN now, where a funeral service for 2 people killed in those deadly floods is being held today. The relatives were hit by falling debris when their house in uMkhabathini Municipality collapsed. 2 other members of the family survived the tragedy. This is one of the first funerals to take place after the floods. Let's go to ENC's Lindo Uhlekulu, who is covering that funeral service for us. Lindo, just tell me about the emotion that those family members are going through because of the way they lost their loved ones.
Well, it's complete devastation, Masego. I mean, 2 people that have died in a family. Some of them were able to be rescued, but the 2 of them, a 56-year-old as well as a 30-year-old, unfortunately have lost their lives. Today is the funeral, as Joe Coman, my colleague, shows you. Just below there are some people from the community coming together essentially to pay their respects. But we are trying to climb here to actually go to where the hearse, we understand, has just arrived. It is quite a steep, and I can tell you that the cars are not able to go any further than this. So we are just climbing here to actually go to where we understand the body is, but certainly quite a devastating thing. The family simply says that when the floods came, they were not able to actually rescue everyone. Some of the family members were rescued, but what you are seeing now is that funeral, first of many in the province, and this is what is happening at this stage. They are arriving. The hearse, you will see at a later stage, is around that area, Masego.
And Lindo, tell me a little bit of how they've described the scenes that unfolded during the time that their loved ones were being swept away. Have they been able to tell you at all what happened?
Well, they told us, Masego, that when the floods came, their house is one of those that is just below one of the mountains in this area. And we do understand that what had happened was that there was, in fact, a huge part of the mountain that fell on top of their house. They've been showing us pictures. Essentially, those pictures show you that there is nothing left of that particular house. And these scenes that you are seeing right now is essentially just 2 bodies that will have to be carried through that mountain we just summited. But essentially, they're saying that when the walls came down, some of the family members were buried around underneath that house. And we do understand that those that were able to help, were able to get help, simply went out. One of them is a boy, one of them is a teenage boy, but another one is an aunt. But what you are seeing now is just the beginning of that particular funeral. We do understand that the reason why these bodies are late is because they could not, in fact, bring them for the church service because they are simply decomposed. It took time for them to actually find them, and what you are seeing is just essentially one of the first funerals in the province that is taking place. The death toll stands ever so close to 500, so we'll be seeing more and more of these, especially from those families that have finally been able to find their family members. They are saying as a family that one of the fortunate things was that when they were looking underneath the rubble, they were able to find some of these family members, account for them. But for other families, it's not the same thing. We do understand that over 60 people remain missing, and hence you've seen some of the rescue missions. But this family has been able to find their family members, and they were able now to continue with the processes of laying them to rest. So that is essentially what is currently happening here. But they're saying that their house was simply, it was covered by a mountain, and essentially some of the members were able to escape. But unfortunately, 2 of them is a 56-year-old umama uDorothy, as well as a 30-year-old usisi uHlengiwe that are actually being buried today. So that is the process that is currently taking place. As you see, the coffins being taken into that particular house in their home of Demsane here in this particular municipality. Family members are coming up as well that mountain to essentially perform some of the rituals, but to essentially as well be able to welcome some of their family members that have passed away because of these floods.
Lindo, I'm so glad that you gave us that bit of information about who they are, right? Because 448 people is quite a lot, and you don't want them to only stay as a statistic. We want to see their faces and who they were. Is there any other information that you can give us about Mamu Dorothy and the 30-year-old family member, who they were in the community and the family, etc.?
Well, we are told that Mamu Dorothy Msane was a person who was a churchgoer, a believer, and a very much active person in the community. And we are told that her daughter, uMkhabathini, who is also one of the people that is deceased here, was also an individual that was very active. In fact, one of the ladies that was speaking inside the tent was essentially speaking about the fact that she really believed that uMkhabathini, the 30-year-old, was in how active she was in the church. Whenever someone would fall, whenever someone would be, taken about by spirits, she would be the first person to respond. She would be the first person to actually give them some form of aid, whether it's water or whether it's just fanning them in that particular moment. So these are the types of things that we are being told. And you're right, Masego, this is the part where we put the faces in terms of the figures. Over 500 people have died, and we understand that about 60 of them are still missing. So for families, the most important thing at this stage, the devastation of the floods, is essentially to come back and be able to account for their family members. Those that are alive, they are able to speak to them, seek medical help for them. But those that have passed on, this is the important process, especially in the context of South Africa, that needs to take place in order for them to be among those that are resting in peace. So this is the process that is currently taking place now. As you are seeing, what we are told, Masego, I should mention quite quickly, is the fact that when these particular families, it's going to be a very, very, very short process of praying for them, and thereafter they will be taken to their graves, because they said that it took time to actually be able to bring them, to find them when they were missing, and hence their bodies were found in a decomposed state. So this particular process, we are told, will be very quickly, and thereafter Dorothy as well as uMkhabathini will then be taken to their final resting place in the rural areas that is within the yard in which they had lived, or the yard of their home. So it will just be a quick process, and thereafter it's going to be on the other side of the yard from what you are seeing, where they'll be laid to rest.
I can see the emotion there of that grandmother who has to be comforted. She looks like she is, sobbing uncontrollably, Lindo. You talk about 56-year-old Dorothy and her daughter, uMkhabathini, 30 years old. Tell us about who they leave behind. Did Mom Dorothy, for instance, have a husband, and uMkhabathini have siblings that they're leaving behind?
That's right, Masego. Mamu Dorothy, as you see, the family inconsolable at the moment. Her daughter was one of those people that had passed on, uMkhabathini, but we are told that uMkhabathini is leaving behind a child. She, in fact, herself had a daughter, uMkhabathini, who is, Mamu Dorothy, who is the 56-year-old. We understand that she's leaving behind her husband. She's leaving behind the family side of the husband. We did speak to one of the aunts earlier on, but we also know that she's leaving behind a son as well. That was part of those that was being rescued during those floods and during those areas. So the process that is taking place here, when you are back, coming back to be put to your final place here in KwaZulu-Natal, in the context of our culture, you do have to pass by a place that we call Gwandlunkulu. This is where they do some of the rituals of the family. Even when it is fun, they do visit this place and are able to actually perform some of the rituals. Irondoleli is one of the houses there where that ritual will be performed here, and thereafter we do understand that they'll be taken to their final resting place. But as much as the bodies are not in a good condition, they still have to undergo and perform some of these rituals, which brings it back to the reason why it is so important to see all of these processes taking place, all of the rescue missions taking place, because at the end of the day, it is only after these processes that families are able to then pay homage, pay their respects, and thereafter start with the process of healing. But it's the first of many in the province. This family has lost two family members, and as you can see some of the pictures unfolding right in front of you, that it's quite an emotional one for the family. But for this family, they are fortunate to be able to undergo this particular process of laying them to rest.
All right, Linda Kuhle in Pietermaritzburg. Let's, of course, leave it there for now. Quite heartbreaking to see that mother cry so uncontrollably for the passing of her daughter and granddaughter. Let's